Let's dive into a deep psychological mystery, one that connects that creepy feeling you sometimes get from a doll or a robot to a dangerous, ancient world our ancestors survived. You know the feeling, right? That sudden shiver you get when you see a robot that's just a little too human or a CGI character that looks off. What's the deal with that? Why do so many of us feel it?
Well, it turns out that unsettling sensation actually has a name, and figuring out what it is, that's the first step in our investigation.
It's called the Uncanny Valley. Think of it like this. The more human-like something gets, the more we like it, but only up to a point. When it gets almost perfectly human but not quite, our positive feelings suddenly plummet. We fall into this deep valley of creepiness.
Okay, so why does this valley even exist? Scientists have been trying to pin this down for a while now, and they've got a few competing ideas.
Most of the current theories tap into our basic survival instincts. Maybe our brain sees those not quite human features as a sign of poor health, so we're wired to avoid them. Or maybe it just reminds us of death. It could even be our internal disease avoidance system going on high alert. Or maybe it's simpler. Our brain just flags it as something that's wrong. All of these are plausible, for sure, but they might not be the whole story.
But what if there's a missing piece to this puzzle? A reason that's much older and way more dramatic? What if this feeling isn't just some cognitive quirk, but a genuine echo of a very real and very ancient danger?
To explore that possibility, we have to go back in time, and I mean way, way back, to a time when our ancestors were not the only kind of human walking the earth.
For over 60,000 years, and that's a conservative estimate, Homo sapiens shared this planet with another human species, the Neanderthals. Just think about that time span. 60,000 years. That is an immense amount of time, more than enough for evolution to forge some deep, lasting instincts.
And just look at the comparison. Neanderthals were recognizably human, but different. That heavy brow ridge, the more robust, powerful builds, the elongated skull, they were the very definition of almost but not quite human. You could say they were the original residents of the Uncanny Valley. And our long history together wasn't always peaceful. The archaeological record points to a pretty harsh reality. We were competing for the same food, the same shelter, and those encounters could turn violent and deeply traumatic. There's even some evidence suggesting cannibalism happened. This wasn't a friendly rivalry, this was a brutal struggle for survival.
Okay, but hold on. How could a fear from 40,000 years ago possibly affect us today? Well, some absolutely fascinating new science is suggesting that trauma can actually be inherited.
A landmark study from 2013 really illustrates how this could work. Researchers took some mice and taught them to fear the smell of cherry blossoms by giving them a mild shock whenever they smelled it. But here's the wild part. Their children, and even their grandchildren, were born with an intense fear of that specific scent, even though they'd never been exposed to it themselves. The fear was literally passed down.
This happens through a wild process called epigenetic inheritance. The easiest way to think about it is like this. A traumatic experience doesn't rewrite the words in the book of your DNA, but it can add little biological sticky notes or highlights to certain pages. These epigenetic marks change how your genes are read, and incredibly, those notes can be passed on, essentially pre-programming your kids with a survival lesson they never had to learn the hard way.
And that right there brings us to the big idea. When you put all of these pieces together, the uncanny-looking Neanderthals, the violent encounters, and the science of inherited fear, a powerful new theory emerges.
It's called the ancestral fear hypothesis, and it goes like this. Our ancestors' dangerous, traumatic encounters with Neanderthals made a gut-level fear of their almost human appearance a huge survival advantage. That fear then became biologically encoded and was passed down through the generations. And even though Neanderthals had been gone for 40,000 years, that ancient alarm system is still there, lying dormant, waiting to be triggered by anything that falls into that same uncanny valley.
So if this ancient programming is still running in the background of our brains, where else might we see its effects in the modern world?
Take a look at this number, 54%. It represents a pretty common fear today that, when you think about it, makes almost no logical sense.
Yep, the fear of clowns. That's the percentage of adults who have some level of coulrophobia. For most people, there's no single bad experience with a clown that explains it. So where does it come from?
Well, through the lens of our hypothesis, it starts to make a weird kind of sense. As the cultural critic Mark Derry puts it, a clown's makeup distorts a human face.
It hides their real emotions and creates exaggerated, frozen features, what he calls a mask of death. It's another perfect uncanny valley trigger, potentially tripping the very same ancient wires that once warned us of a different kind of almost human.
Now, to be perfectly clear, while this is a really compelling hypothesis, it is not proven fact. The science of epigenetic inheritance in humans is still in its early days. 40,000 years is an enormous evolutionary gap to bridge, and of course, those other, more conventional theories for the uncanny valley are still very much in play.
So that leaves us with this one big question. The next time a lifelike doll or a CGI character sends that little shiver down your spine, what are you really feeling? Is it just a harmless glitch in your modern brain's perception? Or are you feeling a faint, ancient echo, a whisper of a warning passed down through countless generations from a time when we were not alone?